Well, it's been a while since I did a video, so I guess I should do that. I put a lot of work recently in reorganizing my my little set for shooting videos. There's a lot of different stuff going on back there. Hopefully you can't see the litter box. You probably can. I think it's just barely in the shot. So what are we doing today? I thought, it's December. Christmas is quickly approaching. Christmas, often associated with toys for good reasoning. So we're going to be doing a toy-based video. Kind of hoping this will be a little blast to the past for some of you. I pulled up some the Neca horror figures. I know it's going to upset some people, but that's just not going to work out. So we're looking at some Neca horror figures here. When I was in my teens, we'll say like very early teens, I started getting into like Freddy and Jason kind of stuff for the first time. A lot of the more like R-rated, adult-oriented horror films. Like I've always loved the classic black and white stuff, and I still do. Obviously, I have a little shrine dedicated to the Universal monsters there. But in my early teens, I started getting into the more, they call it the modern stuff, but a lot of that stuff is old now. But I have a lot of nostalgia for a lot of the horror figures that were out at the time, because that was a big part of my getting into horror for the first time. I mean, there were a lot of horror movies that I had never heard of before until I saw, like, oh, Neca has a figure of this thing. That looks interesting. This is just kind of, I just kind of looked up a general search here of some Neca horror figures. So just kind of got some random things popping up. Oh, I love that. I love just looking at people's collections. I'm not as into collecting figures as I used to be, mainly because I don't have a lot of room for it, and I like things to be sort of neat and organized. So limited space mixed with a lot of junk. It's not great. So that's kind of why I try to keep it restricted. I've sold a lot of stuff recently, and these are McFarlane mostly here. Like that Leatherface. I might look for like a decent Leatherface figure. I'm not collecting a lot of stuff, but I have like my favorites that I would like to have some stuff for. I still want like some horror memorabilia spread about my my little layer here. You can probably see I got the Ghostface mask, and there's a Freddy claw right above it. Oh, this is the first Sam figure. I think this came out right after the movie did. Like when the movie was brand new, this figure came out. When Trick or Treat came out, it went past my radar. I don't think it had a big release, did it? Yeah, I barely heard of it. So this was the first time I saw the character Sam as this figure. I would frequently check the Neca website for like new stuff coming out, and I think this was part of their Cult Classic series. And if you're not familiar with the Cult Classic toy line, that was a series Neca did that was just miscellaneous horror, sci-fi, cult movie kind of characters. It kind of picked off where Movie Maniacs left off, and Movie Maniacs was basically the same thing, except it was a different company. McFarlane did Movie Maniacs, and literally as soon as McFarlane stopped, I think Cult Classics came out, so that's neat. I really liked the action figures coming out, like the collector action figures at this point in time. Like, I guess it was kind of like early 90s into the late 2000s. The style I'm referring to is like, I think they call them staction figures, where they're not very posable. It's mainly just more of a display piece, not a lot of articulation, versus a lot of the newer stuff. Like, I think this one, okay, yeah, I think these two right here, you see this one has posable joints all over, and this one is like just like a doll with clothing, so he's probably got like a lot more articulation under that, as opposed to this one, which is, like, look there, it's just a solid piece. The wrist might move, maybe. I think there's a little ball joint right there. Not a lot. It's mainly meant to just be a specific pose. So it's more like a statue, but there is some posability. And I was always a bigger fan of those. I thought they looked cool. They just looked nice. Like, I don't know if we went past one, but I remember the first Michael Myers figure that had like posable legs, and I just thought it kind of looked weird. Like, I think this might be one of them. Yeah, this isn't the first one, but it's one of the more recent Michael figures. I mean, it doesn't look like crap, but it's just, he's got the posable joints right by the hips there. I just think they look nicer when it's like a solid piece. I know you can't pose the legs, but how often do you need to pose Michael in like any position other than just standing still? I don't know. I mean, people seem to like it, and again, I don't hate it. I had this Pennywise figure for a little bit. I don't know, I bought this Pennywise figure, not really sure why. I wasn't super into collecting at the time. I was trying to kind of like get out of it, sort of kind of what I'm still doing, like just trying to clear stuff out. But I bought this figure, and I took it out of the package, I fiddled with it a bit. I was like, yeah, it's kind of neat. And I feel like I barely looked at it. I eventually gave it to my niece, and I think she appreciates it a lot more, so. I do kind of like the more like doll kind of style, I guess. They got like the fabric clothing, and there's, you know, all they're very articulated, but it's all like under the clothes. So, you know, I kind of like these better than the like the hard plastic articulated ones like these guys. Again, not that they look bad, they just, like, if I was still a teenager, I would be all over this. But I feel like maybe it's like a nostalgia thing speaking to me. I really love those like older figures, the kind of staction ones. Like, I would have loved this back in the day. That's the thing that's hard about this, is a lot of this stuff, it just came out a little too late for me. If I was still in my teens, which was a point in my life where I think I valued plastic figures more than human interaction. Just realized I might have had my my video screen kind of like way in the way of things that I might have been like pointing my mouse at, so sorry about that. I shrunk myself down in the corner here. Hopefully that works better. I changed the search up here. We're looking up NECA horror figures 2000s. We're gonna find more stuff catered to the era that I was growing up with these things. These are not NECA, but these are McFarlane figures. Recently I had the Michael Myers and the Leatherface here. These aren't the most detailed figures in the world, but I still think they're just really cool looking. I still have, back there somewhere, the Norman Bates figure from McFarlane. It's part of the Movie Maniacs line, if I didn't mention that already. Which again, this is what Movie Maniacs were. They were a variety of characters from different horror, sci-fi, fantasy, all kinds of stuff. And the Movie Maniacs each came with a poster. You see these little posters in the background here. That was kind of the fun part about those. So, you know, even if you feel like, you know, this Leatherface isn't the most detailed one and whatnot, you still get this really cool poster. So that still adds something. And then this line went on from, I think, 1998 to 2004. Almost as soon as the line ended, NECA came out with their version of it, which was Cult Classics. Here's a Cult Classics figure. This is Jareth from Labyrinth. This is one that I never obtained, which is Labyrinth might be my all-time favorite movie, like just in general, which is weird because I've never obtained any like figures or collectibles. Like, they made stuff, I guess I very rarely came across it in the wild. Here's a 12-inch version. Like, this was another big line from NECA. This is the Hellraiser stuff. This one, I never had this one. The twins with the weird torso thing. Some of you might be thinking, if you're a semi-Hellraiser fan, but not as hardcore as me, that this is the Chatterer right here. This is not the Chatterer. This is a separate Centibite that has the same face for no reason. But yeah, I was big into this line back then. I loved Hellraiser, I still do. It's one of my favorite horror films. Definitely my favorite of the 80s, and there's a lot of competition with 80s horror. But the Hellraiser figures were really neat because, you know, you can read a whole backstory of these characters right on the back there. So, you know, most of the Cenobites throughout the series, they were very, like, minor background characters. But this, if you get these, you know, you can figure out their whole backstory. How did they find the puzzle box? How How did they become what they are? Here's another McFarlane Movie Maniacs figure, The Fly. I used to have this one. This is probably just one of the most disgusting action figures I ever owned in my life. Stretchy green goo. Like, it was made out of some stretchy rubber just coming out of his side, and he had little, like, hairs on his back. It's very detailed. Like, I know some of the older Movie Maniac figures are sometimes criticized for not being on par with today's standards, but apart from articulation, this one is amazing. Look at that guy. Let's see. Here's another picture of him out of the box. Look at this guy. Look at him. He's amazing. But I actually remember getting this figure at a KB Toys back in the day, so I feel like I kind of wanted this video to be a NECA related video, but I'm finding a lot of McFarlane stuff anyway, which it's fine. It's just whatever. Here's another Hellraiser. I had this one. Another fun fact about the Hellraiser figures, with each series, you could build something if you bought all the figures. Like, you can probably see right here, this is part of Leviathan. If you've seen the second movie, it's a big pyramid-shaped god, whatever it is. But if you got all the figures in this line, you could build Leviathan. There we go. Here's Series 1, you could build the puzzle box. I actually had all the pieces. I had all the pieces for the puzzle box, for Leviathan, and then I had all but one of the pieces for the Pillar of Souls. You can kind of see it right there. You can find like better pictures of these things. I mean, I guess I could, but my vision's a little hindered right now. But yeah, the Pillar of Souls was in Hellraiser 3. The only piece I was missing was the back, so you couldn't even tell that it was missing. But yeah, this is a very cool line, especially if you're a Hellraiser fan like I am. Here's one that I never had. This is awesome. The Dr. Chenard figure. Yeah, that is disgusting looking. Just what an incredible film this guy was in. Hellraiser 1 and 2 are just total masterpieces. Like, look at the artistry in all this. I mean, like, not just on the action figure itself, but like, this is from a movie. This thing had to exist in like life-size form. I'm just getting lost in all this. I love this. Love it. But yeah, I was really big in the cult classics and the Hellraiser. I think that was like the two big things NECA was making. This Jason figure. I had an 18-inch version of this Jason figure. That was the first Friday the 13th collectible I ever had. He had like a switch on his back, and he'd do like the. It just says Friday the 13th, but this is clearly from part 7. So this was back, because I feel like they don't do this anymore. Now they're very specific, like, this is from part 4, this is from part 5, this is part 6 Jason. Back then you could just release a Jason figure and just have Friday the 13th on the label. Like, oh, here's the McFarlane Jason figure. So this one's a little older. This one is not based on any specific version. It probably looks the closest to Jason Goes to Hell. In fact, this is a Movie Maniac, so it came with a little poster. You can see it in the corner there, but they're not showing all of it. Oh, here it is. The poster does say Jason Goes to Hell. It kind of looks like it, but it's not exact. This was back when they didn't give a shit. This is Jigsaw. I had a version of Jigsaw, like the one with the pig head. There it is. I had this guy. Comes with the little Billy puppet. This used to be so cool, the 18-inch figures. I feel like they don't make these as often, but I don't know. For some reason, it used to just be so cool. Be like, oh, you could get a little one, but oh, here's the big one. Yeah, that used to be so cool. Like, oh, you get this big thing. Now, you know, I've been there, done that with, like, having too much crap. I feel like towards the end of the 2000s, like, into the early 2010s, I feel like I was teetering into hoarder territory. So I kind of had to nip that in the butt, which I feel like most people won't do that, but I did. I was like, this is a mess. I don't need any of this crap. I had so much crap. I had, like, He-Man, Ninja Turtles, Marvel figures. I had a collection of 80s technology, like old cameras and a car phone, like just junk. But yeah, it's neat, but do I need all this? So yeah, my attitude has definitely changed a bit. I remember these Resident Evil 4 figures being at like Suncoast. That's where I got most of these figures back in the day, was at Suncoast Video. So that's another flashback to there's another blast to the past right there. But I always remember this guy being there, or not always, but at one point in time. And, you know, I don't know why, but I remember my mom being very insistent about, like, oh, do you want this one for, like, Christmas or something? Would that be something you want? I was like, no, I don't play video games. I don't even know what that is. Like, yeah, but he's got a chainsaw and it looks cool. Why don't you like that? You know, like, she was very insistent about it. Like, I had to, like, really hammer it in her head, like, I don't know what that is. I don't want it. And I think there was, like, a Cult Classics had a Leatherface figure out at the time. So, like, had to point at that, like this, get that one. That's my chainsaw guy. I don't know who this guy is. And maybe I'm exaggerating it in my memory, but, yeah, I just remember she kept asking about it. No, I don't want that thing. Like, that happened, and there was also a situation, my sister, who I think she worked at, like, I think she might have worked at a video game store temporarily. I forget where she got it, but she had a poster from some video game that had, like, a bunch of monsters on it. I guess the game had monsters in it, so she's like, oh, it's a poster with monsters on it, so I figured you would like it. And it was free. She didn't pay for it, but I don't know, it's just weird, like, yeah, you like horror, so even though you don't know what this is, clearly you'll like it. I think some people just assume horror fans are brain-dead idiots, like, oh, you just like anything as long as it's, you know, monster stuff, or as long as it has blood and gore in it. My mom was also convinced that, you know, I should watch True Blood because it's not like Twilight, it's got all kinds of blood and gore in it. Yeah, but it still kind of looks like a softcore porno. This is another McFarlane Movie Maniacs thing. We'll do another video talking about McFarlane, I guess. Assuming this video doesn't, like, tank or whatever. And by tank, I mean receives no interaction, I guess. Yeah, I don't know what to expect. Just, if you like this video, leave some sort of comment or something, because that's how I kind of know what to keep doing, so. If you like this video, say, yeah, I liked it, that's neat. Maybe you could do a video on this topic next. If you didn't like it, you know, maybe recommend something else. I don't know. I am open to suggestions. I just want to make things that people will be entertained by. I think I'm going to wrap this video up because I am getting hot.